Conference today, we want to talk about one particular item in the budget. We want to make it clear that starting October 1st, the grocery tax is back. You look at this budget and you will see that predominantly grocery store items are going to be taxed where they're not taxed. They're going to be taxed at 7.35%. DRS, Department of Revenue Services, issued a bulletin. And in that bulletin, it lists, we've put them up over here, the items that are going to be taxed. Basically, what we're doing is we're taking grocery stores that used to, if they worked kind of like a restaurant, we had a 6.35% tax because they operated like a restaurant. But where they operate as a grocery store, we haven't taxed them. Starting October 1st, prepared meals, prepared foods, ready for consumption, will be taxed at 7.35%. So as an example, staff went to the store at Stop and Shop and purchased some items. And as you can see, there's no sales tax. They purchased items, Ben will take them out. An ice cream. That's now taxed will be now taxed according to the DRS at 7.35. Prepared lettuce, chopped, ready for service, under 8 ounces.
That's spinach.
Spinach. Spinach, this green thing, will be taxed. It's 8 ounces or less, will be taxed at 7.35%. If you buy 5 or less rolls or donuts, you will be taxed 7.35%. If you buy 6, no tax. No tax at 6 or 7 or up and above. But for 2, for a sandwich, you're going to get taxed. Rotisserie chicken.
No.
You all get sandwiches when we're done. Rotisserie chicken is now going to be taxed. These are items that people buy every single day at a grocery store. Particularly the elderly, single family, moms, dads. You even buy a bar, an energy bar. They consider this a meal, according to the DRS. You are now going to be taxed at 7.35%, where you were not taxed before. That's what this bill is going to do. It is simply a money grab. That's all it is. Starting October 1st, all these items, plus everything on the list over there, is going to be taxed. And how it happened? Because in the bill of the budget, they stuck in the word grocery store. And when they stuck in the word grocery store, according to DRS, we're assuming that's how they got to this conclusion, all prepared foods are now going to be taxed where they were not taxed before at the highest rate. So when we were sold this bill, well, what's a 1% tax on restaurants? You're going to go to have a steak, you're going to go out to dinner, so what? You're paying 1% more, don't crap. That's what we were told. That's what the public was told by the Democrats who passed this. Don't worry about the extra 1%. If you can afford to go out to have dinner, you can afford the 1%. But that isn't what they wrote. That isn't how it's going to be enforced. Now I'd like to turn over to Representative Candelora.
In January of 2019, when the idea of even taxing groceries was floated, it fell like a lead balloon. Because people realized that taxing groceries would hurt our most needy people. We are trying to put food on people's tables, and to tax that behavior is not a good thing for the state of Connecticut. And what was floated out there was, if we increase and put taxes on groceries, we'll decrease the sales tax elsewhere and try to balance it out. So maybe everyone will pay a little bit less in an overall sales tax. And that didn't even fly in Connecticut. So what did the Democrats do? Is they conjured up a budget, a way to pull groceries into this meals tax. And I say that because when this issue came before us, Republicans pointed out the concern that including groceries into this definition was potentially expanding meals. And as Senator Fasano pointed out, no, we were told it was only going to apply to prepared meals. If you go out to a restaurant where people could afford that luxury, let them pay another 1%. And in reality now, when we see the DRS statement come out, that's not in fact what's going to happen here. So we're going to have items that people normally purchase go from 0 to 7.35% in taxation. And what is this policy about? What are we achieving? Is it about healthy eating? No, apparently not, because we're going to be taxing people who want to purchase salads. What this is all about is another money grab in the state of Connecticut. And it's also a concern, I think, for businesses, because many of us are caught by surprise that this is actually the way that DRS interpreted this language. And so for those businesses now, they're going to be left scrambling, trying to figure out 4 muffins might be taxed, but 6 muffins may not be taxed. And remember, this is just an advisory opinion. It's the tip of the iceberg. So as DRS will be very quickly to point out, we can't rely on this ruling. It's merely advisory. So we're going to leave it up to the business sector to figure out what items they should be taxing. And when we talk about the punitive nature of a DRS audit, do we really think grocery stores are going to be conservative in determining what's a meal and what should be taxed? No. Potentially, the state of Connecticut is going to be exposed to much greater taxation as a result of this very vague and broad language that was crafted up by the Democrats.
There's even more detail to the DRS. So for instance, if you were to walk out with this chicken and a soda, today you would not be taxed on either. After October 1st, because they're going to deem the soda as part of the chicken, you're going to get taxed on the chicken and the soda. If you just bought the soda, you wouldn't be taxed. But because you buy it together, someone's got to make a determination that's part of the meal. That's what DRS is saying. And as Representative Candelora says, this leads to an abundance of questions of what's taxed, what's not. I don't know how you do self-checkout. It is a mess. But this is done because it is called a money grab. This is just one of the many problems that this budget has caused in the state of Connecticut. When you do it in the back room, when you do it with one party that echoes each other's thoughts, when you do it where there's no one else who could weigh in, and like-minded people think in the same way, ultimately, this is the result you end up with. So I don't know if there's any questions.
Yes, Senator. The governor retorts to these statements of yours. He admits he needed the money to balance the budget, but he sees this as a fairness issue. And he told me, quote, "I think our restaurants have been at a real disadvantage because people could go to grocery stores and buy the same thing you can get at a restaurant tax-free at the grocery store."
So that just shows that he does not understand the law as it exists today. There is no unfair advantage. If you bought, Big Y has those counters. If you bought a pizza at that counter, you would end up paying a sales tax, current law. If you bought that pizza at that counter, if you ate it there. But if you take it home, the idea of a grocery store is you're taking it home for consumption. That's the whole idea of a grocery. That's the functioning aspect of a grocery store. So we filled that parity in by whether you believe it or not, in terms of what was done in the other budget. You said we're going to charge 6.35. What this said was, no, that's not enough. We want to do more. We want to do ice creams that come in small 1 servings. We want to do lettuce that comes in 1 servings. So you go to buy, if you're an elderly person, you're not going to buy, a whole tub of tuna salad. You're going to buy 1 serving. Well, that wasn't taxed. Now it's taxed. So the people that are being hurt are the single moms, the elderly, and those are on budgets who buy in small quantities.
Begging your pardon, I think that the interpretation of the DRS memo is not necessarily just single servings, but like the lettuce, for example, is prepared and ready to eat.
It's under 8 ounces on lettuce, but the point is...
Under 8 ounces, right.
Right, they're under 8 ounces, and that's how they come. But the point is that's exactly why this bill is more encompassing than what Governor Lamont is talking about. We corrected that inconsistency, as he points out, by putting 6.35 on some of the foods. This is much broader.
Yeah, to talk about the parity issue, I think the governor is getting to is that prepared meals in grocery stores has always been taxed. Whether you bought a sandwich at Subway or a sandwich at the deli counter at a supermarket, both items are taxed. That parity did exist, and there's a revenue ruling, I think it was around 2002, that came out that made that very clear. So the governor is speaking to an issue that was already current law in the state of Connecticut. What this bill is actually doing, and what we all should be concerned of, it's not about parity, it's about expanding the universe of taxation. And to your point, Mark, these items that are ready to eat in a grocery store, even though you're going to take them home and feed them to your children, are now going to be taxable.
Can you talk about some of the confusion? We had a chance to talk to some supermarkets. I think it's going to be hard for people, but they're not clear exactly what some of these laws are, whether it's 5 bagels and 6 bagels, whether they have a food court, whether they don't have a food court. So they're not really clear on what the laws really are. And I know the original proposal was all food, but this is very detailed and vague at the same time.
Exactly, and DRS has come out with the guidelines with respect to some of these details and vagueness. So cookies, 5 or fewer, will be taxed at 7.35%. 6 or more, apparently, are not going to be taxed. So was it?
Or may not.
Or may
We
not
don't
be
even
taxed,
know.
we're not really sure. So yes, in terms of you buy a bag of bagels, you don't get taxed. You go to the bakery and you want to get 2 bagels off the bakery, you can pay 7.35, the best we could tell from this DRS. So I understand why the grocery stores are confused. Once again, you take a drink with you and a chicken, the presumption is you're going to be drinking it with that chicken, therefore we're going to tax the soda.
And I think
So it's crazy what to do. But understand what the import of this is, Representative Kim Moore said. It is to expand the universe of taxation, which is what all these Republicans have talked about when this bill came out. It's unfair, it's not right, and it's unjust. And to them, it was, no, it's a money grab, it's the way. His opening statement was, we had to use that to balance the budget. Is that a justifiable policy? I would suggest it's not.
And I think when he originally proposed this grocery tax, which is scaled back a bit, the governor had said that other states are doing this, a lot of states in the Northeast, so why
So we
should
looked at it, and the definition is in other states in the Northeast is that those laws talk about if you have a seating area, kind of like what we did the first time. If you have a seating area, a place to consume it on site, then you're going to be treated. It is a restaurant, it's a grocery store acting like a restaurant, you'll be taxed. When a grocery store acts like a grocery store, it should not be taxed. What this is, a grocery store acting like a restaurant's going to be taxed, and a grocery store acting like a grocery store is going to be taxed. We believe that's bad policy. We believe it is not fair. And those are going to be most susceptible to paying this are the elderly, the lower income folks who are buying meals less, those type of folks.
Have you been in touch with the Connecticut Food Association about this? Have they, the grocers?
My staff reached out to one of the chain stores, I believe, who talked to the organization who was sending out a memo warning the grocery stores that, look, there's a change, be careful. This is the memo, proceed with caution. That's all I know, but I haven't talked to them directly myself, my staff.
What is the magic between 5 donuts and 6? I mean, where is that dividing line come from?
So there is no magic, and I think that's another underscore to make. This is an advisory opinion. The definition of a meal is any food product that's furnished in a form and in such portions that are ready for immediate consumption. So, I guess they see that at least 5 or under is clearly a portion that's ready for immediate consumption. But there could be a question of, are 12 donuts ready for immediate consumption? And the concern here is, what grocery store in their right mind is going to run the risk of breaking the law and being subject to penalties for not charging the appropriate taxes? And so this policy is going to have broad, wide-sweeping impacts on our families that are already struggling from all the other taxes that we have seen in the budget over the last 10 years.
The other thing when you buy like the Campbell's soup, that's under 8 ounces or under, right? Every single one of those soups, it says in here that soups sold in containers of 8 ounces or less are subject now to a sales tax. Well, people buy usually those small cans of soups that you flip the lid open, maybe you gotta warm it up, but it's ready for consumption. Is that gonna be included? It looks like it is. But if I am a store, I'm gonna be conservative in my approach because I don't want an audit.
When the budget was adopted, you would, besides administration and majority, because there were some assumptions about labor savings that still hadn't been achieved, some of them still haven't. There were some aggressive revenue assumptions when they set aside consensus revenues. Do you think this is an aggressive definition of this to try to hedge their bets, to bring in more money to cover areas that perhaps won't bring in as much?
It may very well be. You're right. There are a lot of things wrong with this budget. And having the receipts be raised without any data to support that is very troubling to all of us because it puts the budget in a negative, if you would, right away. And this grocery store, now they put in $100 million, I think it is, over the 2 years roughly, for the tax on groceries.
48 in the first year in 9 months and 65 in the second year in a full year.
Yeah, it's a little bit over that. So the question is, did OPM think of it like DRS is thinking of it? Or did OPM think of it as they talked about, as the Democrats purported it to be? I don't know the answer to that. We have asked OFA to do a comparison between DRS's definition of sales tax and what was in the budget to see if those numbers line up. We won't have that until tomorrow. So when we get that, we'll be able to better figure out what really is going on here.
And Keith, I think, at best, this was sloppy work and it was reckless. At worst, it was very purposeful because the parity that we speak about was already closed. Grocery stores were already taxed for the meals that they provided. By adding in this language of grocery store, it was very purposeful. Or again, it was sloppy on their part because there was no loophole that needed to be closed.
Any other questions?
And this whole thing, just to be clear, this whole thing is 2 words, grocery store?
No, that whole section was rewritten. So
The whole section, okay, sorry.
But
You highlighted the words grocery
I
store.
highlighted the word grocery.
So that whole
because-
section is new, or no?
Yeah, the words have been changed in that section, so where's Jason? Jason, can I say the whole section is new, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the whole section is new, but when you look at the old language versus the new language, the stark difference is the word grocery store being added, because you could have left it as eating establishments or caterers without having the word grocery store put in, and still achieve the goal that Mark Davis was talking about through the governor, which is those grocery stores who act like restaurants being subject to a 7.3% tax. But what they did by adding the word grocery store, that's why we believe, I don't know for sure, that's why we believe DRS said, well, this is more of a universe we're talking about, not less of a universe. And then when they put it all together, that's how they came up with this. This is how we believe.
So what are the revenue figures that this raises?
We don't know. We're going to have those tomorrow, Christine.
Okay.
We've asked OFA to do the analysis, and we won't have that. We asked them yesterday,
We asked him yesterday.
and they said they won't be able to have it till tomorrow.
Okay,
And
but
then-
what was actually in the budget? There had to have
A
been
little bit
something
over
in
$100 million.
100 million.
And the tax
A
expenditure.
little bit over.
The tax expenditure
2 years.
report on groceries is overall $450 million a year that
Right.
Connecticut doesn't achieve. So we could guess this window is going to be anywhere from 100 million to 450 million.
But the current law, individual servings to take out, like when you went to a salad bar in a grocery store, was already taxed.
Yes.
Correct.
Correct? I mean, that's gonna go up, obviously, at that point, but the existing loophole was closed on that.
And what we did was now, so the Democrats, by adding grocery store, is basically subjecting every item in that grocery store to scrutiny for taxation. So they are going to need to go through every item that they sell and determine whether or not that item constitutes a meal and therefore is subject to sales
Or
tax.
prepared food.
It's not prepared food, it's the definition of meal. So what that looks like, we're not sure, but grocery stores are gonna need to make that determination of every item in their store, what are we gonna need to subject it to a 7.35 sales tax?
And the comparison of that is, this is a meal. This is a meal. You know, my kids would love this as a meal, but this is a meal, this is a meal, and these are meals. But 6 of those are not a meal. That's the problem. But it's a money grab, and that's when you do things, as Vin said, recklessly, quickly, because you're just trying to grab dollars.
Or the Democrats succeeded in getting their grocery tax in the dark of night.
Any other questions?
I just had one last thing on your chart over there. This hot dog served on a bun. So you go to the supermarket, buy 12 hot dogs, no tax, correct?
Correct.
You go to the counter in the LLB cafeteria here now, and you get the hot dog on a bun, and it's 7.35. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yep.
But again, to be clear as well, we don't know if that package of hot dogs are now going to be subject to tax.
Is that still debatable?
This is left up to grocery stores now. They need to determine what items they are going to need to tax in order to avoid state liability. So the Democrats have exposed all of our consumers in the state of Connecticut to taxation of any food item.
Ben, can I build on that for a minute? If you're defining, I'm looking at this now, you're defining an eating establishment, because one of the things they give in this is like heated popcorn. I mean, like, you know, like you can get in the LLB cafeteria
Yes.
out of the thing. Okay. If it's in a grocery store, I don't know if any grocery stores have a heated popcorn bin, that's one thing. What happens if you go into a convenience store, and it's a convenience store with 2 benches outside? Is it now an eating establishment? If I go into a movie theater where they will have tables outside there and I buy heated popcorn, how big do you think the potential to expand this? I mean, are places that we wouldn't think of as eating establishments?
Well, I think in that regard, eating establishments stay the way they are, so current law carries. And whether or not you increase the 1% on those items, the taxable items that are meals would increase that 1%. I think where the real gray area is right now are those items that are contained in a grocery store.
Well,
And
this says, though, I'm sorry to interrupt you, this says, for example, popcorn, kettle corn, nuts, and other snack foods that are kept warm for purchase. And if that guidance applies not only at grocery stores, but also at eating establishments.
And I would
It
guess that
defines that,
convenience
too.
stores are already taxing those items at 6.35%.
Yeah, but now they would, what I'm asking you is, and I'm sorry, I wasn't clear on my question.
I see your
Does a
point.
convenience store with picnic benches outside
I
have
see
to
your
start
point.
taxing it at 7.35? The fact that I can go to, I don't want to name a franchise, movie cinemas, and almost all of them have tables outside the concessions area. Do those qualify as eating establishments where I can sit down?
I don't know,
and eat
I
popcorn?
guess, Keith, I'm not sure how they're licensed. To the extent that convenience stores that have the sort of restaurant, grocery store inside,
Well, they have a
they'd be subject to the
license
same,
in.
they'd be subject to the same rules. I think that if, I don't know, you know, that's
I'm
part of the
wondering
problem.
if you pay the inflation.
I think under the tax code, and I gotta look at it again, but I think convenience stores are defined differently. So they may not fall under eating establishment, and they may not be subject at all. So that's an issue we'll have to
Literally.
look at.
Donut has been subject to
That says
tax.
eating
I
establishment.
remember a couple of years ago.
Convenience
So
stores
I
are
think
considered
the
an
bottom
eating
line,
establishment.
you know, that is a sort of an example off to the
But
side.
is it?
But the bottom line is, this is a grocery store tax. That's what it is, on consumers, pure and simple, hidden under the guise of, no, this is just restaurants, 1%. You afford to eat out, you can afford the 1%. It's a bait and switch. It's what it is. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Can you make the groceries for a few minutes?
Not the ice cream.
Yeah.